Well, in 2024, we have fairly low rootworm pressure around the state. Surveys conducted by some of my colleagues and work here on the campus, I think supports that the rootworm pressure is pretty low and has been low for several years now. Um, the uh, management techniques that are being used around the state um, really run the gamut. When I go out and drive around and have a look at plants, I see evidence of some growers that are basically foregoing the use of BT, recognizing that there's really no rootworm pressure that's worthy of spending the money to try to uh, protect corn from non-existent rootworm problems. But I'm also finding a lot of fields where people are throwing the kitchen sink at the rootworm beetles. I think that's maybe more out of fear that they might be surprised by the beetles. Um, I would urge growers that are concerned about that risk to add some pest monitoring into their activities this year so that they can make a more informed decision. A grower that monitored rootworm populations in a field where they were going to grow corn this year probably would have found that there wasn't much to worry about in 2023 that would have led them to plant BT this year. Now, there are areas in the state, particularly in the north, where there's a greater rootworm risk and there's a lot more beetles. But here in central Illinois, it's been real hard to find a rootworm beetle. And as a guy who kind of likes to see them once in a while, I've been a little bit disappointed in their lack of showing up.
You mentioned northern Illinois and central Illinois. What about the rest of the state, western, southern? Do we see any rootworm pressure in those geographical areas?
I think in northern Illinois is an area where consistently we have rootworm problems, and that's more related probably to increased continuous corn production in that part of the state where a little bit more dairy. We also have people that are, it's just more profitable for them to produce continuous corn. Southern part of the state is not an area where we have rootworm problems. Traditionally, we haven't seen them there. Once you get south of sort of central Illinois, kind of the Effingham area, your rootworm pressure is really dropping off. And in the last decade, we just haven't had very many beetles there. But the northern part of the state, we're seeing northern corn rootworms and western corn rootworms that raise their ugly heads now and again. And we seem to be on a bit of an upswing with rootworms in the northern part of the state.
You mentioned if someone is concerned, they don't want to get caught off guard. How do they make sure they're going to adequately and economically plant their corn, take care of their crop, and not be caught off guard?
Well, the simplest way to reduce some of that risk, you can never completely eliminate the risk, but doing monitoring, simple IPM monitoring using yellow sticky traps. You can put those in corn, you can put them in soybeans, and by checking the insects on those sticky cards, you can determine whether the populations of beetles in your field exceed thresholds that would indicate a potential for an economic population the next year. Another important thing is just going out and getting in your fields. I think there's many fewer miles walked in cornfields and bean fields by growers and and their advisors than there used to be. And just getting out and having a look at what's happening is important for determining whether you might have a problem and whether maybe you need to do that monitoring. But the good old IPM is really our friend, and it's the first step in managing these pests.
You've indicated that we had a large peak in rootworm population a few years back. It's gone almost down to nothing, at least in this part of the state. But you've indicated that there's a lot of folks who are trying out the new technology that's rather expensive that could be a waste of money and a waste of time and a waste of management of a very critical technology.
Yeah, that's right. If you use a BT hybrid when you don't have a rootworm problem, you're just wasting uh, the the efficacy of these traits. It's like taking medicine for a problem that you don't have. And when we use BT or use insecticides, when we don't actually have a population of pests that can cause an economic injury, we are allowing selection to occur for resistance to those types of protectants, and we're not getting any advantage for it. And the net result is we spend money to not improve our yields, but we're exposing our management tools to this selection for resistance. And at the end of the day, as we increase selection, we are moving towards resistance, and we run the risk of wasting protective products like BT or insecticide um, for no good reason when there's no insects out there. And that's kind of been the case here in central Illinois for many years. Um, we don't really have a rootworm problem, and we probably could have preserved the efficacy of BT traits much better if we had not used BT as frequently.